Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to the video on the channel. We're absolutely powering through the World Cup content here with a group preview of Group F, team and player analysis and previews. So if you're a big fan of the World Cup content that we're putting out, please do like and subscribe to the channel and the videos. It's greatly appreciated. And let's get into it. So the group is there in front of you, and you might think it's kind of Belgium's to lose, which could be the case, but they do have an aging back line, as do Croatia, and they could be gotten at through the pace of Canada and Morocco attacks. So, whilst we do think Belgium have that star power, it's not always as clear cut as it might appear. So we start with Morocco, and they pretty much eased through the qualifying group, and they beat the DR Congo 5-2 on aggregate to qualify. But they did change the manager in August despite that success because he refused to call up players like Ziyech and Mazraoui. And Rugagi has won the Africa Cup of Nations, sorry, the African Champions League in May. The new manager, so he has that tournament experience and was very successful at club level. Um, but although he has only just taken in charge, he's quite hard to predict, how Morocco are gonna play. Typically, they do tend to play with a flexible philosophy and tend to play on the front foot, like to take the game to the opponents. Whether that will work against Belgium and Croatia remains to be seen. So we have potential players here. We start with Hakimi. He's 23 years old and already has over 50 caps for Morocco. He's an absolute certainty to start. He's got that experience from Paris Saint-Germain, and he provides a real attacking threat going forwards. The value, I guess, remains on how many clean sheets you think Morocco can get in their group, because if you're just relying on a defender for purely assists and goals, you might be left disappointed. Next up, we've got Buffal. He's back in the frame after not being selected for the 2018 World Cup. He got 3 goals at this year's Africa Cup of Nations, and he should be on some set pieces as well. Finally, we've got Hakim Ziyech. He's also back in selection after he said being frozen out previously, and a 7 million price range could be good value now he's certain to feature. Up next, we've got Croatia. So they actually did pretty well in their group, managed to qualify by a point, and then they also won their Nations League group by a point as well in a pretty tough Nations League group, it has to be said. And they are now in the semi-finals of the Nations League, but they do have very high expectations, and whether those expectations are going to be met now they have a lot of players in their mid to late 30s remains to be seen. Manager Dalic has got a good track record in charge, winning 31 of his 62 games. They do have a lot of strength in depth, and the experience to control games. They came second at the last World Cup, and so they do know how to negotiate through tournaments. And that using that experience could be absolutely crucial against teams like Canada and Morocco, who are quite younger in the squad depth. They do prefer an attacking style of play, and a lot of through balls and controlling possession got to go with it. So potential players to get, and we've got Luka Modric first, and even at 37, you kind of just have to put him in this discussion here. Former World Player of the Year and best player in the World Cup in 2018, he does seem to be able to perform consistently at the highest level, and he will be motivated because he knows this is probably going to be his last international tournament. Next up, we've got Perisic, and I do rate Perisic. He netted twice at the group stage at Euro 2020, as well as 3 times in qualifying, so he has got that track record of netting when it counts. He still has the legs to get up and down the pitch and will be relied upon heavily in Croatia's attacks. He could also be playing at full back as well as attacking wing back, so those tackle points could be an option as well. Finally, we've got Kovacic. Now is coming in at 6.5 million, and he is younger than Modric and Brozovic, who will be sharing a midfield three with. So he will be Croatia's box-to-box midfielder. He's equally good at tackling as he is passing, and could get you points from all over the pitch. On to Canada, and they had a really good qualification group. They managed to finish just ahead of Mexico on goal difference, as well as ahead of United States and Costa Rica. And it's their first World Cup in 36 years. And not only did they qualify, they also beat big names in qualifying, including Mexico, USA, and Costa Rica, all of which are at the World Cup. So they have got previous form against, World Cup pedigree teams, but they do have questions over key players such as Alfonso Davies as to whether he will be fit in time. They do have a really tough start. The first 2 games against Belgium and Croatia, and the tournament could be over before it's really begun if they kind of have that inexperience and maybe get stung a little bit from 2 teams that have real good World Cup pedigree, finishing second and third in the last World Cup. They do tend to play a 3-4-1-2 with Alfonso Davies further forward, and they like to counter attack with pace. That long ball over the top for players like Jonathan David to run onto is absolutely key, and they'll have to make the most of that because they probably won't have a lot of the ball against those two teams we mentioned. So potential players, and we start with Jonathan David. He's actually scored 21 goals in 32 appearances for Canada, and he's part of a pacey front three. He loves to just run on and use momentum to finish past the keeper, and he could be one of those players that's maybe going to get a few touches per game, but could be absolutely clinical. Next, we've got Alfonso Davies, and he is registered as a defender and he plays left back for Bayern, but he plays almost as an attacking midfielder, often just behind the two strikers for Canada. If he's fit, he could be one of the best value players at the World Cup at 5 million. Next up, we've got Kyle Larin, and he is Canada's all-time record goal scorer, and he's netted 14 goals in 13 appearances in 2021. He's in fine form and could be one of the lesser-known Canadian names if you're looking to sort of get a differential into your fantasy league team. Finally, we're going to look at Belgium, and they managed to just breeze their way through the World Cup qualifying group. Although they did finish behind Netherlands in the Nations League and did actually lose 4-1 to Netherlands in one of the games as well, which might be a potential red flag. They do have a lot of star power, though. Players like De Bruyne is absolutely key, and they'll hope that that will get them over the line. And they do have a strong bond as a group. They've been there and done it. This is kind of like the golden generation, possibly the golden generation's last real chance to make a run at a major trophy. And they do have six players with over 100 caps in Axel Witsel, Lukaku, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Eden Hazard, and Dries Mertens. And they're hoping to build on that third place finish in 2018. Some tactical analysis here. They could be vulnerable defensively. They're still sticking with Alderweireld and Vertonghen. Players like that are in their mid to late 30s now, and so that pace from Canada, especially, could be really vulnerable at the back. 3-4-3 with two attacking midfielders and fullbacks pushing on doesn't help their defensive situation, and they're likely just to want to blow teams out of the water early on in games and then keep the ball for the remaining probably 80 minutes. So potential players, we've obviously got to start with Kevin De Bruyne. And he was runner-up for the Golden Ball in 2018 as the second best player in the World Cup. Absolutely fantastic form this season for Man City. He will be pulling the strings for everything good that Belgium does. Next up, we've got Romelu Lukaku, and he's actually Belgium's all-time leading goal scorer with 68 goals in 102 appearances. And regardless of how consistent his club form is, he always tends to turn up for the international team. And he is someone that will be finishing off a load of their chances. He is guaranteed to start up front, and 9.5 million. He is a cut below the expensive players that you might consider premium strikers. Finally, we've got Thibaut Courtois, 6 million goalkeeper here. And, he is the best goalkeeper in the world in 2018 World Cup. He is also the most capped Belgian goalkeeper of all time. And he's only 30 years old still. So he is someone that has loads of experience. He's a Champions League winner with Real Madrid. And if you do fancy someone that has, a really pair safe of hands between the sticks, you could look no further than him. So that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for listening. Let us know what you think. Have I missed any hidden gems for each team that you think might be worth getting in your fantasy league team? Like and subscribe, support the channel is greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.